This was 2020. When we signed our real estate lease, we were given about 2 months to put the store together. While we were on to about 45 odd days is when the first wave really hit and we were stalled. And just when we were about to find our feet, second wave hit.
क्या आप कोई भी कोलैबोरेशन या मार्केटिंग कैंपेन के बारे में बता सकते हो?
The most default choice when it comes to organic content is कि यार खाने का ना सुंदर सा फोटो डाल देते हैं. In my experience, ma'am, that is the least likely to do well. People don't care as much.
For people who are interested in opening a cafe, what would you recommend?
I didn't know how to start a restaurant. I didn't know how to do the lighting, how to look at real estate. Our strength was not food because we didn't know it. Our strength of our team was always... Most items are available 15-minute notice. But mac and cheese came in 30 minutes. Why? Because if I were to look at top 3 things, in my opinion, that can make or break a restaurant, definitely be one of them.
आजकल काफ़ी सारी ब्रांड्स क्लाउड किचन कॉन्सेप्ट को एक्सप्लोर कर रही हैं. What do you feel about that?
Cloud kitchens seem very lucrative on paper. You can't really make money on the cloud kitchen model.
आज के टाइम पे आप कैफ़े या F&B इंडस्ट्री को इंडिया में कैसा इवॉल्व होते हुए देख रहे हो?
Difficult question.
क्या आप मानोगे कि एक ग्रिल चीज सैंडविच से भी एक सक्सेसफुल बिजनेस बनाया जा सकता है? ये कहानी है एक ऐसी ब्रांड की जो अपने बेहतरीन कंफर्ट फूड के लिए जाना जाता है दिल्ली एनसीआर में. आज के एपिसोड में हम बात करेंगे मेल्ट हाउस के को-फाउंडर रोहित बेनीवाल से और जानेंगे कैसे उन्होंने अपनी वाइफ के साथ मिलकर करी मेल्ट हाउस की शुरुआत. रोहित मीडिया एंड एंटरटेनमेंट बैकग्राउंड से बिलोंग करते हैं, जिन्होंने बिना किसी कलिनरी एजुकेशन के F&B इंडस्ट्री में मेल्ट हाउस जैसा ब्रांड बनाया. ये स्टोरी है सेल्फ एजुकेशन की, करेज की और उन सभी स्ट्रगल्स की जो लोग फेस करते हैं F&B इंडस्ट्री में. सो अगर आप उन लोगों में से हैं जो अपना करियर और इंडस्ट्री छोड़कर F&B इंडस्ट्री में जाना चाहते हैं, तो इस एपिसोड को एंड तक जरूर देखें. ट्रूफिल नेशन चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें और इस वीडियो को जरूर लाइक करें. नाउ लेट्स गेट स्टार्टेड.
Hi Rohit, welcome to the Big Better podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
So Rohit, I want you to start by a brief introduction about yourself, your background.
Well, where do I start? I'm 34. I'm Rohit. I'm here today, and I am probably 1/3 of Melt House.
Okay.
I've been in Delhi all my life with a brief stint in Mumbai and other places. I'm a proud dad now. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and great, loving life and work, and just going with the flow here.
Okay. Rohit, how was your childhood and education and your early work experience? Tell me something about that.
Sure. As I told you, I've grown up for a large part of my life in Delhi. I went to school here in Delhi, and afterwards for my graduation, I did a Bachelor's of Business Studies from CBS, College of Business Studies, which is now called Shahid Sukhdev College of Business Studies from University of Delhi. I did my master's in mass communication from MCRC, Jamia Millia University, which is where I met my future wife, who is my wife now, but I met her back in college.
Okay.
And afterwards, I was in Mumbai for 2 years with Sony Pictures. I was a producer there. Then at Scoop Whoop back in Delhi. This is right when digital media was becoming a thing. So we were here in Delhi and been with Melt House, starting Melt House and living the journey out since about 17, late 18. Yeah, that's really when we started, right?
Okay.
जी.
So you were working in entertainment and production, right?
Correct.
तो Melt House कैसे हुआ? Like आपने कैसे सोचा कि कुछ ऐसा करना है?
जी. So Melt House का जो जर्नी हम लोग बात कर रहे थे, this is even before we started rolling. So we always, when I was in Scoop Whoop and even when I was with Sony, we were shooting with a lot of clients and people who were a part of this industry, right? At Scoop Whoop, we were helping a lot of restaurants find themselves and let themselves be discovered on the internet. We were helping them build their presence, build an audience. So we got a little bit of an insight into this industry. Of course, it's a very aspirational industry, as you said. हर किसी को अपना पहाड़ों में कैफे खोलना है, so it's a thing, right? Also, it's an industry with a relatively low barrier to entry, right? So when you think of starting a business, it's probably one of the first few ideas anybody would put down on a list. So we were getting a lot of insight into this industry. A lot of restaurants were being opened back in 15, 16, 17, 18. The industry was seeing a lot of actions. Malls and new dining spaces were opening up all across NCR and India at large. So it was a great time to enter this industry. When I was just about to finish my stint at Scoop Whoop, we decided that my wife and I back then, that we have to sort of somehow find a way into this industry. Now there could have been thousands of ways, but the most obvious one was that we set up something of our own, right? And we were thinking again, if I were to answer this question, there were a lot of ideas thrown around, right? So what sort of cuisine would we want to do?
Yeah.
What format would we want to do? What size we'll want to do? We realized we wanted to find just the right kind of niche or the space which is relatively untapped. And we knew for starters, even when we put down anything on paper, that we want to do something which is going to be about comfort food. Because I realized something that we both of us loved. And as somebody says, right, if you do something you love, you don't work for another day in your life. So we wanted to do something with comfort food. We didn't know what exactly to do. And while we were figuring out a list, there is so many different kinds of comfort food around. We realized we wanted to do something with sandwiches. And this must have been around 18. This is just when I left Scoop Poop and Lubna was still there.
2018, right?
2018, correct. I just served out my notice at Scoop Poop. Lubna was still there. I decided to take a little bit of a time and to chalk out a business plan. Uska plan out karte hain, kaise karna hai. We realized sandwiches हमें करना है. We started researching, figuring out the details, कैसे करेंगे, क्या करेंगे. And we started by doing a lot of pop-ups. We did Lil Flea in Delhi. We did Honoki Please with So Delhi.
So तब भी आपने Melt House के नाम से ही ये चीजें वहाँ pop-ups किए?
Correct.
Okay.
This was Melt House from day one.
What were you selling there? Only sandwiches?
Grilled cheese. Sandwiches. So again, sandwiches भी बहुत सारा है दिल्ली में.
Yeah.
So if you go to Janpat, there's an iconic sandwich place. What's it called? I'm sorry, I forget the name. Do you remember? In Janpat, there's a great sandwich place.
I don't.
They do coffee also. Deep Pulse.
Okay.
Correct. So I'll
For
say
the
this again
coffee,
in
they
case they
known for the
forget.
coffee more, right?
Yeah, so again, there are a lot of great sandwich places already in town, right? Deep Pulse being one of them. It's been here for, I don't know, several decades now.
Yeah.
They do great sandwiches. Of course, they do great coffee. They're known for coffee first.
Yeah.
But the sandwiches are also great, right? 100, 150, 200, very approachable. Then there's Novelty in Jangpura. They also do great sandwiches. So within sandwiches also, there were already a lot of players, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to do, as I told you, we're looking for a very specific niche, which was relatively untapped. And I realized American style grilled cheese. Now everybody has made a grilled cheese sandwich at home or had it at some point in their life. But grilled cheese is a very quintessential American dish.
Yeah.
We've all seen this growing up on Cartoon Network and whatnot. Characters would have a lot of grilled cheese. Friends mein bhi dekha hai.
Yeah.
So somehow there was a cultural connect with grilled cheese as a concept. Essentially hai to grilled cheese sandwich hi.
Bilkul.
But as a dish, when it comes together, it's a very specific kind of sandwich because it's very indulgent. It's very cheese first, right? And the other fillings take a backseat to the cheese. So it's in a way a vehicle to deliver a very, very cheese-oriented gourmet experience, right?
Yeah.
It's a great sandwich in itself. So we specifically focused on that category. We chalked up a menu with about 7-8 offerings. We started doing pop-ups. The bread we chose was a sourdough. So we did sourdough grilled cheeses. It was back, as far as I know, we were the only ones doing it in town.
Yeah, because 2018 में sourdough
No
was
one was
not.
doing
Yeah,
it.
it is very hot right now.
Yeah, so Charlie, we've
Yeah.
been working with them for so
Okay.
many years now.
So she was your supplier for the sourdough?
We took all our sourdough from Suchali Artisan Bake House.
Wow.
But back then they were also a very tiny pop-up. Yeah, they had the
Yeah.
kitchen in DLF phase 1.
Yeah.
I still remember going there. So they were also starting out. They were probably a couple of years older than us. But we sourced our bread from them. We figured out recipes on our own. We figured out where to
So
get.
you and your wife did all the recipe
Research.
trials and everything?
100%, all in-house.
Wow.
We were doing this out of our own home kitchen. And when we realized, look, for us, we had to like the product first.
True.
When we
Yeah.
decided, we made a sandwich, let's say, ghar pe banaya, we thought, it's a decent sandwich. People might like it, right? Essentially, again, I'll just take a little bit of a detour to sort of tell you what my process has been like. And mostly it's been Lubna, me, and then Rajesh came on board later. Rajesh is my cousin. He's the other part of this company. He's our other co-founder. And he's essentially a large human teddy bear, right? Because he's a very, very sweet guy. He's allowed Lubna and me to take a front seat with as far as the vision of the brand is concerned. But he's always been there to support us. He takes care of all our finances. He takes care of all the hardcore business aspect of the business, while I obviously pitch in with that too. But he's allowed Lubna and I to kind of unfold our journey in the way we want to, right?
Okay, so I would like to ask you a question.
Yeah.
जैसे आप 3 co-founders हो and
Correct.
day one से you 3 were there, right?
Right. I'll tell you. So it was when we started out, it was Lubna. Lubna's my wife and I.
yeah.
We started with the idea.
Okay.
We did our very first pop-up at Select City Walk. It was an autumn festival. We did our very first pop-up.
Okay.
Rajesh has been a very close friend. He's my cousin. We've grown up together. He came to that pop-up as friends and family, came out to support us.
Got it. Okay.
Sampled the product, really loved and believed in the product. He probably ended up believing in the product more than Lubna and me together. And he said, let's set up a business together. Let's sort of see how far we can take this.
Okay.
And that's how we all came together to embark on this journey, and
So,
let's see how this goes.
like, I want to know, how was that pop-up experience? What were you guys offering that time? What was the price range? Like, कैसे सब कुछ कैसे हुआ?
So, funny you mention, the very first pop-up we did was with City Walk, and back then the brand was called Oh Josephine. Frankly, not a great name, but it just sort of comes back to a cartoon I really used to love back when I was a kid, and there was jingle, and it stayed with me, and therefore we started calling it that because we hadn't done enough research on what to call it. And then that was the very first pop-up we did. As I told you, we did about 7 grilled cheese sandwiches.
Okay.
And people really seemed to love the product. We were doing about 7 sandwiches and 2-3 open toast, which were brioche open toast. All other 7 products were sourdough-based grilled cheese with various different kinds of cheeses and fillings. So a mix of veg and non-veg options. We launched that. This must have been around 2019 October, fall time. Great pop-up. A lot of people showed up. People loved the product. Got us. We started an Instagram page also back then. It was essentially Lubna and me cooking off the kitchen. My mom was there in the back kitchen to sort of help us out in case we were missing on anything. So that's how we started. The price point for the products was about 300, 325, 350, depending on the product. And I think across 2 days, we end up selling about 200, 250 sandwiches. So we did break even because back then we didn't know what we were doing, right? So our costing was obnoxious. All the products were, the raw material was bought from retail.
Yes,
so it was very expensive.
Yes, sure.
So our back prep wasn't so strong, but the product was very well received. And that sort of gave us a boost. And we broke even. We even made some money, maybe about 20 odd grand. So that sort of made us feel that if we were to do this right, dial in the numbers, really focus on getting the business aspect in place, we might just be able to crack this. And that's when Rajesh also came into the picture. He came to eat one sandwich, but stayed for the entire 2 days to help us out. And that's when we realized, and I've always believed in him. And ever since he came on board, it felt like a team coming together. And essentially was when friends and family come together, there is obviously a little bit of trust already ongoing, right? So
that is true.
We just took off, and God's been kind, and we've not looked back ever since.
Okay.
So there.
So that was 2019, right?
2019.
Okay. From doing pop-ups, कितना टाइम लगा आपको इस पूरे आइडिया को, मेल्ट हाउस के आइडिया को एक फिजिकल स्टोर में कन्वर्ट करने में?
Correct. So when we did our first pop-up at City Walk, there was a part जैसे हमें जब हमने पहला City Walk में अपना pop-up किया, उसके बाद हमने लिटिल फ्ली भी किया, हॉर्नोकी भी किया. By the end of the first pop-up, हम लोग sure हो गए थे that this concept might just click. Right? Validation एक मिल गया. So when you're trying out a new business idea, always start with an idea validation phase, right?
True.
When you're able to validate an idea for cheap. So essentially we must have put down around 40, 50K for the very first pop-up, all in all, right? And we made some money off that over 2 days. So we realized that idea potentially has some steam, right? It might just take off. After that, as soon as we did that, we started looking for real estate, right? We had a little bit of an idea कि यार करना कैसे है. So essentially, from as soon as the festival ended, the pop-up ended, we started working on a couple of different directions. First was to sort of lay down a business plan. कितना बड़ा space देखना है, क्या करना है, कैसे करना है. This was one direction. Second was to scout for more pop-up locations, to build a little bit of a goodwill before we can open the store. And real estate hunt was ongoing then, right? So 3 different directions we took. Let's say within 1 to 2 months, we were broadly sure of कि यार हमें कितना बड़ा space चाहिए. So we realized, as new entrepreneurs and somebody doing this for the first time, we realized that we don't want to take on too much of a risk, right? So we started thinking of a very small space.
Okay.
We were looking for a space which can be, let's say, 200 to 300 square feet. This is also when I started, right, because this is a process I follow. Every time I'm doing something, I'm not 100% sure how to enter this because, again, I'm not from the F&B industry. I'm not trained. I've been from the media space. But I've realized every time I run into an obstacle in my life, I just get a book to solve it, right? And books have been a great source of help. And you wouldn't believe I just buy a book for everything, right? So if we were doing sandwiches, I must have bought 10 cookbooks only focusing on sandwiches. I bought, and Amazon is such a great find, right? Because you can find, if you want any book, you just put what you're looking for and search book and you'll find a book, right? And I still remember the first sandwich book I bought was called Max's Sandwich Shop. It's a sandwich shop in London and they do about 12 sandwiches, all focaccia sandwiches. And I bought that book and it gave me a great insight into how to look at a sandwich. Great theory, I must share it with you. He says, how do you make a perfect sandwich? He says, a great sandwich, because it's a sandwich and it's different for different dishes, but a sandwich must have all components or all essential flavors in one dish. I'll explain this to you. He says a sandwich should have something soft, something hard. Two very opposite things, but when they come together, it'll create magic. So he says a sandwich should have something crispy and something soft, two different textures. Something hot and something cold. So maybe a hot protein, but a cold salad. Okay. Something sour, something sweet, something salty. Right? So when all these ideas come together between two slices of bread, he says if you're able to do this well, you will create a perfect sandwich. And that theory has stayed with me forever. And it's
like
insane.
Science of a sandwich, right?
It's insane. It's science of a sandwich. And you can test this, right? Because if you were to make, let's say, he makes a great sandwich. Again, this is not something we serve, but it's a sandwich he serves. He calls it the bhaji smuggler. And bhaji smuggler is because Brits called, for bhaji is bhajia pakoda for them, right? So a bhaji smuggler is 2 pieces of focaccia. And there's obviously some sort of compound butter in there. And bhaji is your crispy bit, right? So bhajia is crispy. Your the aioli he makes, the mayonnaise, is going to be something nice. So he'll make, let's say, a mint chutney aioli, right? So mint chutney is your is something sweet and sour and soft, so and fatty, right? So that's your aioli. He'll also put something crispy. So for a Bombay-inspired sandwich, he'll put Bombay mix, the namkeen, right? So again, a very great addition to the sandwich. When it comes to salad, so again, hot, cold. Bhajia is hot. He needs a cold salad to cut it out. He'll make like a, let's say he'll make some sort of salad, maybe a cucumber salad, right? And then what have we missed? Crispy, maybe a soft egg on top, right? So something soft, something crispy, something hot, something cold. And he'll, obviously the mayo can have something sweet, something smoky, right? But when it all comes together, you get such a massive diversity of flavors. It'll just work, right? And I've tried this across so many different sandwiches, and every time we're able to do this well, it works like magic. It looks innovative, because how do you innovate? Let's say you're putting a sandwich together, you know you have to have something crispy in there. Now you have an open canvas, right? You're working with limitation that you need something soft and crispy. Your crispy could be as varied as crushed Lay's chips, but you could also do Kerala banana chips. You could also do namkeen. You could do anything really, right? So as long as you have something crispy in your sandwich, here you can do a lot of innovation. When you're looking at protein, you could obviously do your chicken and paneer and whatnot, but you can innovate with your mayonnaise, right? You can innovate with your aiolis. You can innovate with your compound butters. And this theory stayed, right? So again, coming back, books have been a great source of inspiration. Every time I bought a book, I've learned something great from it. When I think of doing a restaurant, I didn't know how to start a restaurant. I didn't know how to do the lighting, how to look at real estate. So I bought a book. The book was called Setting the Table by Danny Mears. Danny Mears is the guy who behind Union Square Cafe and Shake Shack. Of course, we know Shake Shack because it's iconic, right? But also Union Square Cafe is very big, right? It's a great restaurant based out of New York. So Danny Mears wrote a book. It's about 400 pages long, but it tells you exactly everything you need to do to set up a restaurant. Every single thing, right? And it's so crazily detailed. He tells you किस टाइप का लाइटिंग होना चाहिए, लाइट का कलर टेम्परेचर कितना होना चाहिए, फ्लोरिंग कैसा होना चाहिए, बैक ऑफ हाउस को कितना स्पेस देना है, कितना स्टोरेज देना है. Every single thing you can think of is a part of that book. And again, for somebody who was a noob, didn't know anything about the industry, it's a great place to start. Again, I didn't know my accounting, for example. So I bought a book. It was called Profit First for Restaurants. There's apparently a series of books written by a CA called Profit First. Okay. And it's such a crazy book because it tells you how to make your allocations for different parts of your business to make sure you stay within budgets. And great learning. So again, my recommendation to anybody who's watching this podcast, please buy a lot many more books and read books like crazy. It always helps. You can never go wrong with reading books. Thank you.
So Rohit, to summarize everything that you said, can you just tell me top 3 books that everyone should read who's planning to start a cafe?
Wow, hard question because there's just so many of them, right? But I'll say top 3. Let me think about it. Okay, 100% Danny Mears. The book is called Setting the Table, right? This book should tell you a lot about how to set up a hospitality business in general. Again, great guy, great book. Don't miss it. The other book I'm going to recommend is obscure, but I'm sure you'll be able to find it. The book is called Profit First, and it's by a guy called Mike Kalowicz. I hope I'm saying his name right.
Okay.
This book is about how to set up your financial and accounting processes. Again, crazy book, has helped me out so much. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
It's a game changer, right? The last book I'm going to recommend is, again, it's a mouthful. It's called Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Again, great book about setting up company culture, setting a company in general, and all things business, right? Great book, very insightful, challenges a lot of assumptions people have about how to run a business. So top 3 books, must read.
Okay. So Rohit, you are like 3 people running the business, right?
Correct. That's
Can you
correct.
tell me आप में तीनों का क्या क्या role है as of now in the business?
Correct. So between Rajesh, Lubna, and myself, we are the people running the business as of now. Of course, we have a wonderful team back helping us out. But between the three of us, Rajesh takes care of our finances
Okay.
and in general, a lot of business processes. I take care of marketing, expansion, and making sure the brand vision is going forward as is. Lubna takes care of operations, of recipes, new product development, all of that together. But again, given that we're a young company, there's a lot of overlap happening, right? So we end up stepping into each other's roles, and that does cause a little bit of a fight, but again, in all good faith, because there's a lot of love and trust ongoing.
Okay. All right.
This episode is sponsored by Trueful Nation Baking Academy. क्या आप भी एक प्रोफेशनल पेस्ट्री शेफ बनकर अपना एक सक्सेसफुल बेकरी बिजनेस स्टार्ट करना चाहते हैं? If yes, then this message is for you. Trueful Nation के पेस्ट्री शेफ डिप्लोमा प्रोग्राम के साथ आप सिर्फ 6 महीनों में एक प्रोफेशनल पेस्ट्री शेफ बन सकते हैं, even if you have never baked before. Trueful Nation is the only pastry academy जहां हर 4 स्टूडेंट्स के लिए एक डेडिकेटेड शेफ मेंटर असाइन होता है, ताकि आपको पर्सनल लेवल पर अटेंशन मिले. यहाँ 14 यूनिक कैटेगरी के बेक प्रोडक्ट्स आपको दोनों एग और एगलेस वर्जन में सिखाए जाते हैं, और बेकर्स के लिए डिजाइन, बिजनेस मैनेजमेंट एंड मार्केटिंग सेशन भी दिए जाते हैं, ताकि आप अपने पैशन को एक प्रॉफिटेबल बेकरी बिजनेस में बदल सकें. पिछले 3 सालों में हमने 2000 से भी ज्यादा एस्पायरिंग बेकर्स को एक सक्सेसफुल पेस्ट्री शेफ बनने में हेल्प किया है, और हमारे स्टूडेंट्स ने 300 से भी ज्यादा प्रॉफिटेबल बेकरीज और कैफेज देश भर में लॉन्च किए हैं. तो अगर आप भी एक प्रोफेशनल पेस्ट्री शेफ बनना चाहते हैं सिर्फ अगले 6 महीनों में, तो अभी जाइए truefulnation.com पर और इनरोल करें हमारे अपकमिंग बैच के लिए. We have limited seats in all our batches, so if you are ready to start your career as a pastry chef, then enroll today.
So can you tell me the story behind the name Melt House?
Yeah. Okay, great question to ask, because a lot of people have asked me how you came up with the name Melt House. Again, I don't think it's a great name, but it's the best we could come up with that moment. Unfortunately, when we were, not unfortunately, but back when we were starting out this business, this must have been, as I told you, late 18, early 19. Every time you think of doing a restaurant business, the first thing you think about, yaar, naam kya rakhenge, right?
Yeah.
And then people take out a notepad and a pencil and start scribbling down tens of names. Unlucky for us, when we were doing this, ChatGPT was not a thing. Otherwise, the best thing would have been to just hit the keyboard and put ChatGPT, tell me the best names for cafes all about the world. But ChatGPT was not a thing back then. So we had to do a lot of elbow grease and think of the names ourselves. And obviously, the first 100 names you come up with are going to be really stupid, right? So we did a lot of stupid names. Oh, Josephine being one of them. I don't know why I kept that name for the pop-up. But a lot of names were thrown around. Some names seem very cool to you, but they will not find resonance with your target audience, right? Again, when we were looking at that list, I think it was Lubna who came up with that name, Melt House. Again, this stayed with us because I'm not sure it's a perfect name. Let me start out with that. But why it resonated between us three as partners was because Melt House as a concept revolves a lot around cheese, chocolate, and indulgence.
Yes, something comforting, right?
Something comforting. Yeah. And within comforting also, we do a lot of cheese and chocolate, right? And cheese and chocolate are two things that are essentially melty things, right? Quintessentially melt, right? So we knew that melt had to be somewhere in the name, right? And again, why house is because the kind of vibe we wanted the brand to project was whenever somebody steps into a restaurant, they should feel like they've stepped into somebody's home. It should feel warm, it should feel welcoming, it should feel comforting. So comfort being the catch-all word, right? So in fact, the very first logo we also did had a little bit of a house situation on there, right?
Okay.
So there was a little bit of a house in the hills, had a little chimney, smoke coming out of it. And it takes me back to a cartoon reference I know. I don't know, back when growing up, have you ever seen Heidi as a cartoon?
I think
Do you
so. I
remember?
have.
Heidi was a little girl in
Yeah,
Switzerland, and she used to live out on
she used to wear dresses, cute dresses.
cute dresses. Again, a Swiss girl,
Yes,
made a lot of cheese and used to live with her dad. Really cute cartoon, right? So Heidi played on the back of my mind and asked my designer to put a logo. So she made a cute little house, and it just resonated so much. So Melt House, again, it's a place where you come in, you'll get a lot of comfort food. You will be made to feel welcome. If we are able to do a job well, we should make you feel warmth. We should make you feel that you're a part of this community. Again, unlike a lot of restaurants, I see this happening out at a lot of places in Delhi. I'll give you a little story. Of late, hospitality has taken on several dimensions in good and bad ways. For example, a lot of places I go to now, they very consciously try to project a very exclusive image, right? By that I mean, for example, you walk into a restaurant, you see कि खाली है यार, उसके बाद भी they ask you, hey, do you have a reservation?
Yeah.
I know it's empty, I can see it.
Yeah.
But they will still not let you in, right? Because they have to maintain an aura of exclusivity, right? They'll probably say, hey, we only allow reservations, and it's good for them, not really a bad thing. But it's the direction they've chosen. With us at Melt House, one principle that we do not compromise on is that for us, comfort, warmth, and hospitality comes first, right? It's something non-negotiable for us. So if you come to Melt House, even if there's a queue outside, we have no tables, we will try our damnedest best to get you in and into a table, right? Because it's something that matters to us, right? So while our food is such, service is such, sometimes there could be something on, something off, kabhi na kabhi gadbad bhi hota hai. But for us, a deal breaker is if a guest feels कि यार उसको थोड़ा हमने impersonal feel करा दिया या exclusive feel karaya. For us, inclusivity is a very big part of the business we want to build. Anybody who comes in has to feel welcome, and that's a big part of who we are. So I think Melt House together, when everything comes together, this name represents what we stand for, and I hope the name resonates with people.
I think it's a really good name.
Yeah, you think so?
You know, when I hear Melt House, I know it has something to do with comfort and cheese. And I think that was your whole
pretty
aim.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Again, यार ChatGPT होता तो शायद और better नाम होता, but again it's what we have. Because people have really cool names, right? They'll put something obscure Italian, ऐसा कोई इटली में जगह होएगा, कोई फ्रांस में जगह होएगा, and they'll have really cool names. And because they have such cool names, you'd think, my God, this name looks so cool, I have to go to this place. So maybe we don't have that vibe, but again, I feel within us, as a company, most of our staff also, our core team also, this name resonates with us, and we've just been going with it. And if God is kind, I think it resonates with the audience too. Here's hoping.
So Rohit, जब आप एक न्यू इंडस्ट्री में आए, राइट, आपको सबसे बड़े चैलेंजेस क्या फेस करने पड़े थे?
यार एक होता तो मैं बहुत जल्दी बता देता. Challenges ही हैं, right? I mean, it's a series of challenges one after the other, and I feel a large part of my and my partner's journey has been simply navigating a lot of challenges, right? So again, it's not an ideal situation to be in, but how our day usually starts is what are the challenges we're facing today and how we're going to find our way around them. When I first entered this industry, let me sort of help you with a constructive answer to this question. First things first, right? How do you design a concept? Again, books helped, as I told you. So that's probably part one. Second part, when you've sort of figured out the model and what you want to do with it, then comes the biggest challenge, the real estate.
Yeah.
Right? How do you find the right real estate that is going to give you the right kind of customer flow, therefore bringing in the right kind of business? You have to be able to get at the right price point. It has to give you the right sort of attention. So finding a good real estate is probably the hardest part of this business. And I mean, most people might know this better than I do, but from what I know, real estate in India right now is incredibly hard to crack.
Yeah.
Right? The prices are through the roof. And again, it just makes your business model all the more difficult, right? Because if you're paying, let's say, an X amount for your rentals alone, plus you pay GST on top of that. And for most restaurants, you don't get input credit on the GST, right? So it's going to be a very big outgo on your month to month, right? And once you start doing that, you have to be able to make sure that you have to meet certain revenue targets for you to be able to meet those rental expenses, and then take care of your salaries and other overheads and still be able to take out a healthy margin for yourself, right? So real estate is a very big challenge. When we were looking for real estate, we looked all over, right? We looked at Noida, we looked at Delhi, we looked at Gurugram. Finding the right real estate at just the right price point was probably the most difficult part of this journey. I think we were so lucky that we ran into the promoters at 32nd and they offered us a cute little spot on the ground floor, because usually even the big mall developers or any of the people who have great real estate are not usually going to take a bet on new and upcoming brands, right?
Yes.
They need some sort of credibility.
Yeah.
They need to know if you're going to do a job here, you'll do a decent job,
Yes.
and you're not going to mess it up, right? So we were able to put together a good deck. We showed it to them. They did show some interest and they took a bet on us. And the real estate they offered, were so lucky because we were on the ground floor and we got a corner location, and anybody who crosses that location in 32nd, it's hard to miss. All we had to do was to build a beautiful spot, have our product in place, and when we signed that real estate, we sort of knew that this might just work, simply because the real estate was so good. And it's something that a lot of business owners, and especially up and coming business owners, seem to neglect, right? They will either be of the opinion कि यार जो सबसे महंगा रियल एस्टेट है, बजट का कोई दिक्कत ही नहीं है, सबसे महंगा रियल एस्टेट ले लो, आप ले तो लोगे, पर क्या ओवर टाइम आप उसको with you the kind of sales you're making, will you be able to make enough sales to justify your business model?
Yeah.
Either you go that direction, which a lot of people make that mistake anyway. The other route people tend to go is, I'll look at the cheapest real estate I can get, right? Now, it depends on the kind of business you're doing, but mostly for retail businesses or customer facing businesses, you need to have a real estate which has a lot of,
right?
which is accessible and has a lot of native traffic flow around it, right? Customers need to be able to cross that storefront, and the more the customer flow, the higher chances of some of these people converting and entering your storefront is, right? Now, if you're looking at cheap real estate, you might just end up going to a third, fourth floor, right? Now that's not necessarily a bad real estate call as long as the location is great. But again, nothing compares to a ground floor location, right? Again, this is not a hard truth, but usually this is a good rule of thumb. If you're on the ground floor, if you're on certain junctions where a lot of normal foot traffic and traffic flows, you're very visible, the likelihood of you doing well just goes up a little bit, right? But again, it has to come at the right price point. That's also a very big challenge.
So do you believe location is the utmost important thing for the success of a restaurant business?
I wouldn't say it's the utmost important thing, because for me, the utmost important thing is your concept and your business model. But again, it's one of the most critical factors that can determine your success or failure. If I were to look at top 3 things, in my opinion, that can make or break a restaurant, location would definitely be one of them.
Okay.
Again, your model will be the second, and probably your product and your marketing will be the third.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm making third and fourth, but I hope you get the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rohit, for people who are interested in opening a cafe, what would you recommend? Should they rent or should they purchase the property?
Difficult question. Again, I'm not the authority on this, but here's my 2 bit, right? Renting will most likely make sense because of the sheer disparity between the prices of buying versus renting, right? If you can afford it, hell, might just look at it, right? Because you'll have to, again, run a P&L projection on how much money you'll potentially make off it. But again, for most people, I think simply the disparity between renting and buying is so much that renting will make sense at the very beginning.
Especially in India where the real estate is.
Yeah, because
right?
Again, commercial real estate is prohibitively expensive,
Yeah.
right? And if you look at affordable commercial real estate, you would be looking at locations which are very up and coming, right? And those are a little bit of they're a bit of a wild, risky locations, right? Because if you can look at affordable, now, for example, if you were to buy a place in Connaught Place or Khan Market, you would be shocked how expensive that real estate is, right? It's from what I know, and the report I read last, Khan Market is probably the second or third most expensive real estate in Asia right now, correct? So when you're looking at rates like that, obviously the equation should favor renting more. Not like the rentals are any cheaper.
Yeah.
But therefore, and if you were to look at buying options, you'd be looking on the outskirts of the town, right? You'd be looking maybe on the peripheries of Gurgaon or Noida. But those locations don't have in my opinion at least, I'm not a real estate expert, but they might not have the right kind of residential density yet to be able to support newer brands, right? So riskier locations, again, you must check with a real estate consultant and run your math. But for most people, I believe at this point, renting might just make more sense.
Okay. So your first store was in 32nd Avenue,
That is
right?
correct, yes, please.
वहाँ से दूसरे स्टोर खोलने में कितना टाइम लगा और सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम क्या आता है जब आप एक से दूसरा स्टोर खोलते हो?
Well, I think challenges जो एक स्टोर खोलने में है वो multiply by 2 तो होता ही होता है. So I think we took us about an year. So we expanded in phases, right? The first store we did was a very small little sandwich pop-up in 32nd. It was barely 300 square feet, right? Out of which 150 was the kitchen. So the dining area could barely hold about 7-8 people.
Okay.
But we were lucky, right? And luck has played a large role in our journey so far, because the promoters at 32nd gave us that tiny little space to start with. That space started getting filled up really, really soon. So they allowed us to put up a lot of chairs outside and have a little bit of a patio seating going, right? So that helped to sort of expand operations further. Now, at that time, again, I'll have to take us back to the challenges we were discussing earlier.
Yeah.
So a really big challenge that we faced when we started out, again, this was 2020, right? And 20 is most synonymous with COVID.
Yes.
When we signed our real estate lease, we were given about 2 months to put the store together. While we were on to about 45 odd days is when the first wave really hit. And the store wasn't finished. We had another 15-20 days of it out left. And we were stalled. We didn't know what to look at. And the future was so uncertain. We didn't know how to go about it. And then I ended up writing an email to the promoters. Now, a lot of people did get into very difficult situations, but again, God was kind. They offered us a way out. They offered us a certain arrangement where both parties' interests were taken care of. And we got into an arrangement that helped us out of that situation, right? But again, COVID really hit at this point. Now, while the lease agreement was fairly okay and we were able to wiggle our way out of that pickle, the other problem was, will customers come or not? Because we didn't know what the future will look like. Will everybody move to deliveries? And we hadn't even done trials yet, right? So a really big challenge. So we did end up opening store for the first 2 odd months. This is when after the first wave, the things started opening up. For first 2 months, we were looking at essentially a deserted mall, right? Barely anybody showed up. But then a small trickle started. Then more and more people started coming in. And second wave was still a distant memory. This was another year for the second wave. But people started coming in. We started deliveries. Things started picking up. So things happened in a step-by-step manner. So again, COVID first wave was the first part. We were able to find a way around it. We started the small shop, start with some outdoor seating. Things were happening. This, and just when we were about to find our feet, second wave hit, right? And second wave hit, but again we were able to do some deliveries. We started a couple of product lines which were delivery friendly. So for example, we started an edible cookie dough. We promoted that through our Instagram and other social media channels. People started ordering that home, so that was able to at least meet the salaries, and we were able to, the landlords again were very kind to waive off our rental for that period. So we were in a okay situation. We were coasting for the second wave also. But how that did help us, unfortunately not so much for others, but how did that help us was a much larger real estate right next to our unit was vacated and it was made available to us after the second wave. Now we sort of jumped on that opportunity because we were already between the two waves, we were already getting a full house every other weekend. So we spoke to the promoters and they offered us a place adjacent to us. And that's when we expanded into the larger space, which we ended up calling the library. Again, is Melt House only library again, because I was really fascinated by books and I wanted to do a library bar, and this was the first time we were going to do alcohol. So we expanded into that unit. Now we had a much larger Melt House in place. So again, 2021, late 21 is when library was fully functional, up and running. And then in 23-24, we started looking for other avenues, right? And this is around 23 end is when we finally found the right real estate. It took us about a year and a half to be able to find the right real estate. But this is when we expanded into our GK outlet. And again, that was when the hunt was over. If I were to tell you the challenges we ran into, so many, right? Because within the first outlet, while real estate problem was solved, the next problem was, how do you build a team? How do you find the right talent? Again, that's a problem that took us a while to sort of wrap our heads around. The other big challenge was setting up processes. And it's a challenge I still struggle with to this day, because challenges about processes are ongoing, right? There is just no limit to how much optimization you can do for your processes, right? For example, inventory. How do you make sure your inventory is streamlined and you're ordering from the right vendors? Your relationship with your vendors is dialed in. How do you find new products? How do you find them at the right price point? And how do you match your consumption with your inventory? A lot of restaurateurs end up making that mistake where they're not able to track their inventory well. And it's a big source of leakage for the revenue, right? You have to dial in your inventory processes. It took me about 2 years to be able to find even a bare bone system that works, but I'm still optimizing it to this day. Similarly, our HR processes, our financial processes, all of this has to work together for a restaurant to work, which is why I say it's a terribly difficult industry to get into, because it's a business like any other business. But again, there has to be a lot of storytelling. There has to be a lot of marketing. And when it's a customer facing business with something as ubiquitous as food, right? Everybody has an opinion on food, right?
Yeah.
Any customer who comes in will have an opinion on food. And there are just so many opinions to deal with. How do you tackle that is another challenge. So just so many challenges. They were replicated when we were doing GK. But at least across 2 years, we were able to set in some rudimentary streamlined processes, which we were able to scale up, and that did help. But again, it's an ongoing journey. I think it never stops. You have to keep optimizing it, but hopefully one day we should be in a good place.
So Rohit, जैसे you said you even started a library bar, right?
Correct.
I want to know, अगर कोई अपने कैफे के लिए बार लाइसेंस या लिकर लाइसेंस चाहता है तो क्या प्रोसेस होता है उसका?
Well, it depends on state to state really, because as far as I know, excise is a state subject. So every state has its own laws as far as their excise policies are concerned. And To be honest, it's a very difficult thing to wrap your head around. I would highly recommend, whenever you're doing something, always look for a consultant who can help you out with the journey, right? Because there are a lot of consultants. You will find them through do a basic Google search or speak to other restaurateurs who have a bar license. They should be able to hook you up with somebody who's done this for other places. Once you have a consultant in, it just makes the process very, very easy. Otherwise, if you were to do it for yourself, I'm not saying it can't be done, it can be done. But since there are so many departments involved, it just is a fairly complicated process. And if I were to give you a basic structure, you first have to make sure that all your basic compliances are in place. For example, you have your FSI, your fire safety license, depending on state to state. Different states have different mandatory licensing. For example, in Delhi, you will need to have an MCD eating house permit. Sorry, you have to have a Delhi Police eating house license, an MCD health trade license, a food safety license, a fire license. Once you have all of these in place, and they are sort of staggered, so you have to start with FSI, then apply for MCD, then get a police eating house clearance, then finally go to excise. Once you have all your basic compliances in place is when you approach the excise department for a state excise license. There will be a basic inspection, then you have to pay the fee. There are different classes of licensing depending on the establishment, and you have to go through the whole process. There are certain grey and white and black areas about it, like any other business process in India. But I'm sure the right way and the easy way is to go through somebody who's done a lot of licensing work for other brands, and it just makes it a whole lot easier. It's expensive also, and again.
So approx कितना time and approx कितना पैसा लग जाता है to get a liquor license?
It really depends, right? Some people I know from the industry, they've been able to get their license in as early as 2 months. We had to wait for 6 months to get our license in. Again, this depends on the state. This depends on so many factors, right? For example, if there's an election coming in, during that time, a model code of conduct will kick in, and you can't, all processes are stalled during that time, right? So suddenly election aa gaya, 20 din kaam ruk gaya. You'll have to wait for that time. Similarly, खर्चे की अगर बात करें, depends on state to state, depends on license class. For example, in Gurugram, we have a license which is called L10E. In Gurugram, we only serve beer and wine, right? But if you were to have a full bar, that license in Gurugram is called an L4, L5. The compliances are different, the fees are different, and this changes every year, right? But all in all, depending on the state, in Gurugram, you could be looking at a year's worth of license fee, which for this year, last I checked, is about 20 odd lakhs for per annum. This has to be paid quarterly, and of course there are other expenses involved, other expenses. So
okay, got it. So मैं जानना चाहती हूँ, जब कोई कैफ़े अपने मेन्यू में अल्कोहल इंक्लूड करता है, तो कितना प्रॉफिट मार्जिन इफेक्ट होता है उससे, और आपके हिसाब से ये डिसीजन कितना सही है?
Here again, there can't be a blanket answer for this question because it depends on the concept really. If, for example, if you're running a cafe which is very coffee focused, you bring in alcohol, you can't really expect all of a sudden it'll just take off and it'll contribute 40% to your top line. It just doesn't work that way, right? Your concept has to be such that alcohol has to be an integral part of that concept. Correct? It has to speak to your food. It has to speak to your ambience. It has to speak to your vibe. When everything comes together is when you could really expect alcohol to start moving. It can be really beneficial to some restaurant formats, for instance, and I'll tell you how that works also. For example, you have a format which can have a big liquor play in it. For example, if you were to do a cafe, you have the right kind of ambience, you have the right kind of event programming, you have a lot of musical events, or let's say you have different sort of gigs happening every other week. So you believe that you can move a lot of alcohol. In that case, for a cafe concept, which is not, let's say, a party place or a lounge or a nightclub, you could at best maybe aim for a 40 to 50% of your revenues coming in from alcohol sales, right? But the good thing about alcohol sales is once you start moving a lot of alcohol volume, companies are also trying to promote their brands, and you could get very interesting deals worked out with a lot of brands. For example, a company comes out with a new gin, right? They're also trying to find a new market for themselves.
Yes.
So you have to able to assure them a certain quantity, a certain volume, and ask them for marketing support. You might get a couple of cases in for free, right? That helps you kind of factor in your costs.
Yeah.
So situations like these, once you start moving volume, and that's true for not just alcohol, for any product you're doing, right? Once you start a relationship with a vendor and you start moving a lot of volume from that vendor, they will be able to give you
Better
certain
price.
marketing support
Yeah. Okay.
and certain favorable payment terms, or in general make your life easier. And all of these things, when they come together, they do impact your bottom line a lot. So yes, on the other hand, if you are a concept which is trying to forcefully fit alcohol into that concept and you think it's a magic pill that will change the game altogether, I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that way. I mean, to be honest, for us also as a brand, we haven't been able to crack that code yet, right?
Okay.
People see us as a food first brand. And best case, I think the best contribution of liquor to our top line has never been more than a 35%.
Okay.
Usually it hovers around 30%, between 25, 30, 35%, but never more than that.
Okay.
Right? Alcohol has to speak to your menu. You have to be able to justify to your audiences why they should be having a drink at your place. Again, you have to price it right. You have to have a great cocktail program in place. So too many factors to be honest.
Okay. आज के टाइम पे मेल्ट हाउस के कितने आउटलेट्स हैं?
Currently, we have 2 outlets, one in 32nd Avenue in Gurgaon, one in GK2 M Block, and we're trying to build a couple of more of these across NCR. Hopefully, if things go well, we should see a lot more Melt House around.
Okay. There is a Melt Bake House, I think, in DLF Avenue.
Correct. There's a Melt Bakehouse in DLF Avenue, but that's like a little sandwich and coffee shop.
That is also your...
That is correct. That is
Oh,
correct. But
wow.
that's like an express format. We've been
Okay.
trying to build an express format for the longest time because sandwich has been our core product, and we move a lot of coffee. Hot chocolate again is one of the products we've really dialed down over the years. We sell an insane amount of hot chocolates every winters. So we wanted to build an express format that brings you the best of Melt House, but with a smaller footprint. Because Melt House in general, because it's a medium-sized format, expanding from store to store takes a lot of capital investment. Now, an express is easier to scale, easier to franchise. So therefore, we are trying to build an express format. The one in DLF Avenue is called Melt Bakehouse.
Yeah.
We keep tweaking it, trying new products out. So that's that. But full-scale Melt House, there are 2 across town for now.
Okay. All right. So Rohit, have you ever thought about franchising Melt House?
Oh yes, definitely. Of late, I mean, as we speak, we are currently looking for people who are interested in franchising with us. We're looking at potential partnerships, and it's a process we've been into for the last 3 odd months now.
Okay. So like what kind of franchisee are you planning? Will it be a company owned and company operated one?
Yeah.
Or like what model are you preferring?
This is going to be a FOCO model,
Okay.
franchisee owned, company operated.
Yeah.
Because again, for a format like ours, which has so many variables, we believe that our company should be the one setting the processes and intensively taking care of the process. Because again, consistency is another challenge that is true for most restaurants. They seem to overlook it, and I'm not saying we are perfect at it, but I believe it can only be done if our company and our team is looking at it closely.
Okay.
So FOCO is the model we've chosen for franchising.
All right. So apart from franchising,
Yeah,
what other ways are there to expand your cafe or restaurant business?
Okay. Well, I've looked into this and I've been researching this off late. So franchising is a very obvious choice, but franchising comes with its own pros and cons, right? Because if you are going to look at potential partnerships, and if you're looking to onboard franchisees, please do not get greedy. Because I've seen a lot of brands meet their death because they got too greedy with their expansion. They ended up signing the wrong kind of partnerships, which eventually ended up biting them. And it works other way also. Some brands can potentially look at taking on a lot of partners but shortchange them, right? It has to be a mutually beneficial relationship. The franchisees must be able to have a good return on their investment, and the brand should be able to offer a lot of intrinsic value to them, as well as for the brand itself. The partner should be such that they should be able to allow you to express your vision, but with their capital backing you. So franchising being one option. Another option for restaurateurs looking to expand their brand is to go through maybe institutional funding is one option, right? I mean, depending on the size of the brand and how lucrative your model is, you could potentially approach people who write smaller checks. Maybe you could look at picking up a seed check. Again, depends on the size and format. But for somebody who has a brand with a smaller footprint, which is easily scalable, let's say your brand is, you can easily expand into an outlet 2 out of 15 to 20 to 25 lakhs. You could have somebody writing you a small check, maybe pick up a seed round or an angel round, right? And you have to approach all these people. You have to put your model in. You have to show that you could take out a certain EBITDA. You could take out a certain healthy margin, how you'll expand eventually. But once you have a very solid model and you approach people looking to invest in up and coming brands, we have so many stories of brands picking up good investments. Blue Tokai obviously being one of them. It's been in the news for the various funding rounds they've picked up off late. So that can also be a potential avenue.
Yeah.
Again, you could look at help from friends and family. If you could, depending on the size and the investment it takes to put together another outlet, that could also be one way. You could also look at debt financing, which means you could approach banks and NBFCs. Of course, the interest NBFCs charge is very, very high, but you could look at raising debt from them and using that money to build your outlet in. But all of these come with their own pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
Debt with a very high interest, if you're not able to meet the business, that debt still has to be paid. Similarly, if institutional investors come on board, they will have a say and they will have a seat on the board and they will have a say in how you run your brand. So for anybody looking to expand their brand, they must be able to go through all these options, read a book again, but research how all these models work, and then look at it, right? Because just so many options out there.
आजकल काफ़ी सारी ब्रांड्स क्लाउड किचन कॉन्सेप्ट को एक्सप्लोर कर रही हैं.
Yeah, yeah.
व्हाट डू यू फील अबाउट दैट?
Oh well, again, you're asking me very difficult questions, right? Because wow,
हैव यू एवर थॉट अबाउट?
I have a position on this, and I have a little bit of a nuanced position on this, right? Cloud kitchens seem very lucrative on paper. Now, what I mean by this is, anybody looking to start a restaurant, they feel कि यार cloud kitchen खोल लेते हैं, कितना
Yeah.
लगेगा, 4-5 लाख रुपए लगेगा, मेरा brand खुल जाएगा. What they don't see is that cloud kitchen operations are incredibly hard to crack. And again, a very strong recommendations I make to anybody wanting to enter this business is to first look at it like a business, right? You have to be able to delineate within your mind what is a passion project, how much money you're able to go into, how much money can you afford to burn on it, and have clear mental models around passion project and business. अगर बिजनेस समझ में नहीं आता, पहले बिजनेस सीख लीजिए, फिर उसके बाद बिजनेस कीजिए, राइट? बिकॉज सम पीपल overtly romanticize the idea of running a business. क्या रेस्टोरेंट खोलना, इट्स अ पैशन प्रोजेक्ट, इट्स माई लाइफ लॉन्ग एम्बिशन, करना है मेरे को, ये करना है. But they end up losing a lot of money.
Yeah.
They feel disheartened, and then maybe they're not able to start a business ever again, right? So you don't want to be one of those persons. It's better to have a rudimentary understanding of how it works. Maybe work at a restaurant for 5-6 months. Pick up essential business knowledge कि मॉडल कैसे बनता है, किस प्रकार से हम फाइनेंस करेंगे, बजट कहाँ कहाँ जाना है, कितना बजट है, कितना बर्न होगा. Once you have a grip on these numbers is when we should start a business. To answer your question about cloud kitchens, now let's look at it this way. On an average, we're sitting in 2024. If you are a new brand and you approach Zomato or Swiggy or any of these aggregators, what sort of commissions would they charge? Depending on the location, anywhere from 20 to 24 to 25, even 30. Most people I know, this is a broad range. Again, I can't tell you my commissions because it's confidential data, but most people would end up signing on a 24, 25, 30. This is the broad range they offer. Again, Zomato and Swiggy,
So it
any
can
aggregators.
be different for different brands.
Yes and no. I mean, if somebody has an old contract,
Okay.
right?
Got it.
They've been doing it for a while. Zomato again revises contracts every year, right? So I'm assuming that some people would have contracts which are very, very old, decades old,
Yeah.
and maybe they're signed on a lower commission rate. But for most people, the broad range from what I know and what I've read is going to be between 24 to 30%. But that's just commissions, right? Because you have to pay GST on top of that, and you can't take input credit on the GST. So plus 18% add on to that, right? Then once you're onboarded on Zomato or Swiggy or any of these aggregators, in any given area in NCR, there are about, I don't know, 100, 200,
Yeah.
300 restaurants,
Yeah.
right? Cloud kitchens, maybe more, right? How are you going to come up on the first 10, 15, 20, even 30 restaurants that shows up on anybody's
You have to
feed, right?
promote.
You'll have to pay for marketing.
Yeah.
Now, marketing is a cost, right? A cost per click is one way you can market yourself, is around anywhere from 20 to 30 rupees, maybe lower. But you're looking at broadly 15 to 20 rupees, right? Per click is when somebody clicks on your
Yeah.
Zomato or Swiggy page. This is how most digital platforms work, right?
yeah.
So you have to pay them per click. If somebody clicks, what are the likelihood of them ordering? So your conversion 10, 15, 20%, right? So again, you have to pay a cost. How much will that be as a percentage? I don't know. Depends on your budget, right? But anywhere from 15 to 20 to 30, right? Then you have to pay your food cost. Then you have to pay your salaries. Then you have to pay your rental, your electricity, any other overhead that might have missed. Because this is a podcast conversation, I can only list so much.
Yes.
But there are so many more overheads. Your food cost will be anywhere from 20 to 30%, depending on the cuisine. So when you factor in all these costs, you can't really make money on the cloud kitchen model. I'm not saying people don't make money on the cloud kitchen model. Some people really make a lot of money on the cloud kitchen model. What we are talking about here is the likelihood of somebody doing that if they are a complete newbie into the industry, right? And again, sorry, I'm referring to another podcast, but I think Raj Shamani did a podcast with the founder of the biryani. What's the biryani brand called?
Biryani by
So Raj Shamani did a podcast with the founder of Biryani by Kilo. Great
Yeah.
podcast. I heard it myself. He has a great perspective on this, and he says the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who's been doing this for a while, somebody who understands the model, and somebody who's achieved the right scale, they can potentially make a lot of money on this model because it's easier. It's very easy to scale. Outlet 2, 3, 4, 5 can happen very easily. Once you have a central kitchen in, your distribution is sorted. So outlet 1 is going to be difficult, but outlet 10 is not going to be so much difficult.
Yeah.
Plus, unlike a traditional restaurant, if you're marketing the right way, you can almost be sure that you'll get a steady order flow from day one. The problem is your unit economics. Will you be able to, if you're able to make money on one single order, then you potentially might be able to do this very successfully. But most people are not very sure of their numbers. They do a very back of the paper, back of the napkin calculation. It doesn't work. You have to sit with a CA or sit with an accountant, run it on an Excel, make sure every potential cost that you can think of, you've dialed that in, and then see if you're able to make money on one order. If you're able to do that, it's a great model. If not, it is a very difficult model to crack. And most people just enter it because यार पैसा कम लग रहा है. But please do your math.
सो मिल्ट हाउस में एक इंग्रेडिएंट है जो ज़्यादातर आपकी रेसिपीज़ में होता है.
That is correct.
कैन यू टेल अस अबाउट दैट इंग्रेडिएंट एंड उसके अराउंड सब कुछ सेंट्रलाइज्ड है, लाइक हाउ डिड यू प्लान ऑल दैट?
That ingredient, I think you're talking about cheese.
Yeah.
We do a lot of cheese at Melt House. We're called Melt House for a reason because we do a lot of cheese and chocolate. Why cheese? Because again, when you're thinking of doing comfort food, as we spoke about earlier in this conversation, we want to do comfort food. And when I look back on my childhood or my wife's childhood or my partner's childhood, cheese has always been a big part of this, right? Because great comfort food maybe starts with cheese, for us at least, right? Of course, aloo ka paratha being another exception, but cheese is a very big part of this deal, right? So we wanted to do grilled cheese, and we realized we want to go big on this cheese idea.
Yeah.
Right now, how do you do that? The first and the most difficult part was to find the right sort of vendors. We believed that we want to start with a lot of indigenous products because again, for a brand sitting in 2024, we wanted to have the right kind of values that represent us, and sustainability is one of those values, right? We wanted to support local producers, and we were lucky because when we broke into the picture, a lot of other people were also breaking into this industry who were producers. Somebody was doing artisanal cheese in parts of Uttarakhand. So when we were looking to source our vendors, again, I spent a lot of time on Google. I spent a lot of time on YouTube, on Instagram, just to be able to find places. And one good way to find vendors for us, again, I'm not sure if people are still doing this, but what I did, and I'm sure it'll be beneficial to a lot of people listening to this podcast. When I was thinking कि यार चीज़ खरीदना है, कहाँ से लें, नहीं समझ में आया. Google किया तो distributors मिलते हैं. Distributors obviously will give you the rate list and all, but most of these will be imported products.
Yeah.
You want to use indigenous products, those guys are harder to find. But how do you find them? Back in the day, food hall was a big thing. So there was a food hall in Chanakyapuri, there were other places.
Yeah.
I ended up going to those places. Of course, retail product hoga. But I pick up products from their cheese section and I flip the box. Box के पीछे नाम लिखा होता है कि कौन producer है. Manufactured by and marketed by. So I figured out manufactured by कौन है. And you write them on a diary and then you research them on Google. You somehow figure out their contact details through Instagram. You DM them on Instagram, find their email. You just write to them. Just a cold call or a write to them.
Yeah.
Luckily for us, a lot of these people wrote back and they were interested because they were also expanding. So we had a direct relationship with a lot of our vendors. Example being Old Hill. It's a great cheese producer, Mr. Nitin, based out of Uttarakhand. I realized there's another great cheese producer in Uttarakhand called Darima Farms. How I found them? There's a place in Def called, they sell a lot of artisanal products. Forgot the name. I think it's called Nature's Basket or something. But I did the same thing. I went to a retail store, picked up products from the shelf, पीछे देखा यार producer कौन है, found them on the internet, gave them a call. So we found Darima Farms. Our Gruyere came from Darima Farms. All our cheddar and a lot of other cheeses and Parmesan came from Old Hill. We found great Kalari cheese out of a producer in Kashmir. Apparently there are a couple of great cheese producers in Kashmir. And great cheese, completely homegrown, very indigenous, has a very unique flavor. Got those cheeses in, tried a lot of recipes with those, right? Sometimes we were able to find the correct melting product, sometimes we weren't. So we had to find substitutes. So maybe 35% of our current cheese, and we use a lot of cheese and a lot of different kinds of cheese. So 30% to 35% is imported, but 65% is completely indigenous, and it comes from all sorts of producers. We get a lot of cheese from producers in Kodaikanal. I realize there's a lot many producers in Kodaikanal. One of the best burratas I found in the country is from a producer in Bombay. But now, I mean, I'm talking about a couple of years back.
Yeah.
But right now, you find a lot of cheese in and around Delhi itself. You don't have to worry so much. But in 15, again, it was a little difficult. So we found a great burrata from Bombay. We had different people selling us fresh cheese. We got a lot of cheese from Flanders, based out of NCR. We spoke to a lot of people, right? And a great way to start when you're looking for producers is to go to supermarket shelves, see who was the producer there, and just give them calls. That helps. Again, Google is the safest. Or you could also look at going to some of these trade fairs and festivals, right? So Ahar being a very common fair, a lot of people go to Ahar, pick up a lot of brochures, give them calls, set up relationships, always help. And maybe 7 months into the journey, we got a great purchase manager in, and ever since that, my life is sorted. I don't have to worry about this so much. He figures it out. He figures it out for me now.
Okay.
But we had to set the initial relationships going. So, what more do you want me to talk about the
I
cheese?
want to know, as of now,
Yeah.
if we compare Indian origin or Indian origin cheese or imported cheese, do you think we are going towards that quality and flavor जैसे आपको बाहर की मिलती है?
Okay, great question. Well, yes, for sure. Yes and no, right? Because different producers do different things. If you were to ask me, are indigenous producers as good as foreign producers? Why not? Sure. But of course, some of these products have IPs, right? So for example, a whiskey really, from what I know, a whiskey can only be made in certain parts of the world, right? So if it's a bourbon, it can only be made in Tennessee, right? So for example, if it's a
Champagne, it can be made
champagne
in-
is only champagne in France, right? So similarly, a lot of cheese are, I think it's called, the process called geotagging, right? So certain cheese are geotagged to certain locations of the world. So of course, they are probably going to be the best cheese you can get. But Indian cheeses have their own unique flavor, and some producers do an outright amazing job with it. For example, Old Hill did a great cheese for me, which was a hemp and spirulina infused cheddar. They did it for us for a pop-up we were doing. Incredible cheese. Whoever I served it out to loved it. They've never had experience. All of our customers who sampled that cheese told us, we've never had something like this before in our lives. So very, very unique product. Again, you have to be able to appreciate that all these cheeses, so the quality is top notch, right? Because these people, they really focus on their quality. And the processes are very intensive. They're trained abroad, a lot of these producers. So they know their quality. But both of these products will have different characteristics, right? So
sure.
Let's say a British Gloucestershire cheddar will have a very different characteristic. It'll have a different color. It'll melt a certain way. Whereas an Indian cheddar will also melt a certain way, have a different characteristic. Both are good in their own way. And depending on the producer, some people make mass market product. So definitely quality versus price, wo thoda alag hoga. But some people make high quality artisanal goods. And I believe in sourcing those because again, artisanal quality and people who make everything by hand, effort करके बनाते हैं, process से बनाते हैं, mechanized process कम follow करते हैं, great product, great character, and that's the kind of product we believe in. So our charcuterie producer is also from NCR, artisanal meats. Mema does a great job, but her sausages or any artisanal charcuterie I get from her is top notch, uncomparable. And I've tried commercial products also, but hers is a league apart. And these people are trained. They've really practiced their craft for a long time. So
And you
they
can see
really
that.
surprise you. Yeah, 100%. You have to pay a premium for the artisan products, but the quality kind of justifies the price.
आपने अभी मेंशन किया that you have a
correct.
you have a
Purchase
purchase
manager.
manager, right? जो लोग इस इंडस्ट्री से नहीं है उनके लिए you need a chef, you need a waiter, and maybe that's all, maybe someone to manage the reception.
That's correct.
But actual में कितने लोगों को hire करना पड़ता है at what positions to run a successful cafe or restaurant?
Yeah, sorry, I can't emphasize this enough. You need an accountant. You just cannot do well without, because again, unless you're a business person first, entering this industry, most people would be people who've sort of trained their chops in a culinary school or anything. So they might not have the requisite business skills on board.
Yeah.
They must partner up, or they must be able to find the right kind of professional to be able to give them sound financial advice. So let's break it up, right? You need a front of house team, a back of house team, and you need like a core business team, right? You need somebody to take care of you'll need somebody to take care of your finances for you, give you sound financial advice, right? So you definitely need that person. That could be a CA helping you out if you have a great relationship, or you'll have to hire an accountant for yourself, right? That's one. This accountant can help you, or you yourself you'll have to contribute, but between the two of you, you can split your HR duties, at least when you're starting out. Eventually, when you scale up to a large point, you might have to get a HR team in also, but in the beginning, they can, between you and the accountant, you can be able to figure out your HR processes.
Yeah.
Then when it comes to back of house team, you definitely need a good chef who's be able to take care of your processes. For some restaurants, the chef does take care of their purchase also. Do I recommend that? Not really. I feel a purchase manager, if you can afford it and if he's well experienced, game changer, right? Because they can totally help you out with.
So you have one purchase manager
That's
for
correct.
all your outlets, right?
Correct. For all Melt Houses, we have one purchase manager.
Okay.
But each outlet also has a purchase executive in place.
Okay.
So, which is why we are able to control our costs and make sure everything is dialed in, because we purchase centrally, then we dispatch to outlets, and they have to make sure they tally their inventory. Because inventory out from the main store, inventory in at the outlet. That's how the process kind of pans out. So, purchase manager, highly recommended. Chef again for back of the kitchen. If you can afford it, I will also recommend a controller, a cost controller, that is. Right, and most people can't afford a full-time cost controller, at least when they're starting out. So they have an option of hiring a part-time cost controller. Will not be as effective, but it'll do the job.
Okay, can you elaborate? एक purchase manager exactly क्या करता है?
Gee, purchase manager takes care of your vendor relationships, and mostly, for example, if your chef needs a certain product, he'll be able to find you that right vendor who has that product. He will be able to compare cost with 4 different outlets to be able to find कौन सा vendor अच्छे payment terms पे best cost पे आपको दे रहा है. So this is the first part of his job, is to find you vendors. Then उनके साथ ordering relationship बनाना. जैसा मान लीजिए whatever your company process are, your chef will tell the purchase manager उसको क्या requirement है. Purchase manager vendor को order करेगा, inventory receive करेगा, inventory का data पूरा enter करेगा. He'll make sure that he's logging all the inventory ever received and all the inventory which has been dispatched to the kitchen, right? So whichever departments, be it front of house or back of house, जो भी inventory लेते हैं, purchase manager data पूरा log करता है. And then all the vendor payments that have to be made, he'll be able to track all of those, and he'll make sure in general you have a very smooth process with your inventory. Inventory in करना, out करना, payments करना, track करना, vendor relationship manage करना, getting new process in, all of this is done by the purchase manager.
Okay.
Some of them, depending on their experience, also help you with cost control. But from what I know, cost controller is a different designation and is a different job profile.
Okay.
A cost controller's job is to make sure whatever process you've set up, whatever recipes you've set up, the kitchen and the service team is following those recipes. Quantities उतना exact use हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है, और आप अपना food cost target या अपना beverage cost target meet कर रहे हो कि नहीं कर रहे हो. This is what a controller does.
Okay.
So a part-time controller is an option. A full-time purchase manager is a great thing to have. You can't do without a chef, so you must need a chef.
Yeah.
And the chef will bring in his team, so like a
Yes.
Commie 1, Commie 2, DCDP, depending on the designation. That's the back of the house. In front of the house, it's advisable to have a manager so that your workload can be reduced. Because I feel for an aspiring entrepreneur, you should be mostly focusing on your brand and your story, right? You can't do everything. If you are going to do everything, you will eventually end up spreading yourself out too thin and might not be able to do justice to anything you're up to, right? So it's best to focus. For example, within our organization, I focus heavily on telling our brand story, our marketing, our vision, and how we're taking the brand forward. This is what I do, right? I also supervise a lot of other departments. However, those guys are professionals and they do their job very, very well. My job is only to make sure कि हम लोग जो हमारे business objectives हैं वो meet करें नहीं करें. I just follow up and check with them.
Okay.
But I 100% believe in my team. So similarly, front of house, a manager is always advisable because they'll take up a large portion of your burden. They'll make sure that the guest experience, if and all you've set up great training processes, they'll take care कि यार customer के साथ जितना भी interaction है या जो customer flow है, customer journey है, वो properly execute हो रही कि नहीं हो रही है. आपका beverage का सारा काम usually front of house deal करता है. So whether that is being taken care of or not, all of this is done by manager, and manager के नीचे they bring in their own wait staff, or as we call the stewards, your junior stewards, your senior stewards, your captains. All this is front of house team. Together they make a team. Even your hostess who ends up attending and welcoming guests is a part of the front of the house team. So back of the house, front of the house, housekeeping, which can be shared between 2 departments, and an office team. This is largely the kind of team structure that you need in place to be able to successfully run a business. और ये बिल्कुल bare bones skeletal team है. You can keep adding to it as you grow, but I feel this
This is
much
a
if you
must.
have,
Yeah.
it's a great thing to have.
Okay. So Rohit, you have a marketing background, right? उस बैकग्राउंड ने आपको मेल्ट हाउस की ब्रांडिंग में कैसे हेल्प किया?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I am not so much of a marketing person, but my life's journey has taken me through phases where I've always loved and believed in the idea of stories, right? They're magical things, and it's insane how a story well told can just completely change the script on anything, right? When I was in Delhi University, I was doing a business program. However, मैंने कॉलेज में इतना सच में पढ़ाई नहीं करी. I was a very mediocre student, at least in my graduation, right? Because I spent most of my time doing theatre in college, and I was really into it. I bunked classes, but I did that for 3 years straight. And then usually after a BBS, people would end up doing an MBA. I decided with my then girlfriend to go to a film school. MCRC essentially is a mass comm program, but very heavy focus on filming, right? Because I wanted to do that. So we ended up going there. From there, we went to Sony Pictures. Again, dealing in television shows, storytelling, reality shows. That was a big part of my grooming and growing up and my learning through my job, right? When we came back to Scoop Whoop, also here my job was only about telling stories, right? How do you tell a story where more and more people can get interested in what you're saying? Everybody has something to say in this day and age, right? But आप ऐसा क्या बोलोगे और कैसे बोलोगे? कैसे is the trick कि वो आपकी बात में interest दिखाए? Right, so this is what a story is all about, right? It has to have a beginning, middle, and end. So when it came to Melt House, we knew our strength was not food because we didn't know it. We could do a lot of research and we could collaborate with the right chef and do the product well. Our strength of our team was always telling a good story. Now, अभी time will tell and history will be a judge कितना अच्छा कर पाए. बट हमें ये पता था कि यार हम कोशिश इस लाइन पे करेंगे. वील मेक श्योर दैट जो वैल्यूज़ में हम बिलीव करते हैं. आई बिलीव एवरी ब्रांड हैज़ अ कोर वैल्यू, है ना? व्हेन यू से लग्जरी ब्रांड, दे ट्राई टू से समथिंग not in an obvious way, but you know what they're representing, right? So we knew what we want to represent. I'll come back to the same idea. We want to represent comfort, warmth. We wanted to be the kind of space where somebody comes in, they're having a miserable day, they sit with us for 1 hour, but they leave with a smile on their face. Very basic idea. ये convey करना था. अब इस challenge से हमने अपना whatever we knew about marketing, whatever we knew about storytelling, we played with that. And we were at a very interesting time in history because digital media was blowing up, right? At that time when I just left Scoop Whoop and I was just trying to do this, it was easier to get traction on the internet very fast because the algorithm was pushing you. You could do YouTube shorts and get a lot of exposure. You could do Instagram reels. Imagine I come from a time when reels was just starting out. Obviously Gen Zs won't relate, but millennials would. So reels was a thing, right? If you put a good reel together, it would get a lot of organic traction. It worked for us. And it really worked for us. We kept doing it over and over. Every time we tried a new product, we told an honest and frank story. We tried. So some things really worked, some things didn't. But again, stories can be told in a lot of different ways. The most obvious choice will be through your socials and through your channels. We also chose to tell a story through all experience touch points. What I mean by this, your interiors tell a story. Your color choices will make a story. आपका टेबल का जो लकड़ी का है, मार्बल का है, दैट टेल्स अ स्टोरी. आपने फ्लोरिंग वुड किया या पत्थर किया, टेल्स अ स्टोरी, राइट? पत्थर इज कोल्ड, राइट? यू वॉक ऑन टू अ मार्बल फ्लोर इन विंटर्स, यू नो व्हाट आई मीन, राइट? योर नीज विल टेल यू, राइट? Wood is soft, it's muted, it conveys warmth, right? So seating, you want hard chairs, you want Parisian bistro chairs, you want couches, they tell a story. So we were very conscious. The art on your walls tell a story, how you play tells a story, right? So we were trying very hard कि जो भी करें एक स्टोरी टेल करना है. अगर फ्रेगरेंस भी है अपना डाइनिंग एरिया में, क्या फ्रेगरेंस है? वी चोज वुडी एंड मस्की स्मेल, क्या थोड़ा माउंटेन टाइप का स्मेल आए, राइट? अगर बाहर कॉबल स्टोन्स हैं, उससे एक फील आए, थोड़ा सा एक अलग कम्युनिकेशन आए. प्लेटिंग्स जब आ रही थी, इन द बिगिनिंग वी आर डूइंग अ लॉट ऑफ एनामल वेयर. मोस्ट रेस्टोरेंट्स विल जस्ट डू सेरामिक. वाई वी चोज एनामल वेयर? एनामल, आई थिंक मिलेनियल्स वुड अगेन रिलेट. एनामल वेयर इज तामचीनी. इफ़ यू सीन, जो पुराने ज़माने में कैंप फायर में यूज़ करते थे ना, जो अंदर से स्टील होता है बट ऊपर से पेंट होता है. सो वी चोज टू डू अ लॉट ऑफ एनामल वेयर इन द वेरी बिगिनिंग. नाउ वी स्विच टू सेरामिक टू अ लार्ज पार्ट, बट अ लार्ज पार्ट ऑफ अ प्लेटिंग इज स्टिल एनामल वेयर. व्हाई दैट टेल्स अ स्टोरी? बिकॉज एवरी टाइम यू सर्व समथिंग आउट इन एनामल वेयर प्लेट, आपको ऐसा लगता है मैं कैंप फायर पे आ गया हूँ, कहीं दोस्तों के साथ पहाड़ों में कैंपिंग पे गए हैं. सो दैट चूजिंग टू सर्व अ सूप इन अ मग एज अपोज टू अ बोल, दैट टेल्स अ स्टोरी, राइट? नाउ smell, for example, we served a lot of mac and cheese. मैक एंड चीज़ आप 10 तरीके से सर्व कर सकते हो. वी डिसाइडेड कि हम 30 मिनट्स में देंगे मैक एंड चीज़, इवन फॉर डाइन इन कस्टमर्स, वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम. Most items are available 15-minute notice, but mac and cheese came in 30 minutes. Why? Because we baked it fresh. It went into the oven, topped up with cheese and everything. But when it was served out on a plate, cheese bubble karta hota, because you're a chef yourself, you'll know when cheese out of an oven, you have to hold it with mittens, but wo pura bubble karte jata hai, steam karte jata hai. But when that was served out to a customer, it almost looks like a boiling fondue. It's such a crazy story to tell. Here I was at Melt House, I saw the cheese bubbling, uska steam face pe aa raha tha, so crazy. So all of these were ways through which we told our story.
Okay.
In the very beginning, we told our team what is the kind of verbiage or language you have to use. You can't say standard Starbucks experience, hi, welcome to Starbucks. What can you say that turns somebody's day around? That was the theory, right? If you're welcoming somebody, if you're seeing somebody off, you can always say, thank you so much for visiting us. Very formal. We would say, so glad you visited us today. Small tweaks, right? Thank you. You made our day. Small things which we felt were very impersonal, but that tells our story to our customers through experience. We focused on this, we dialed down on this, and we did it for as many things as possible. How we'd serve out our bill, that was a story. How our servers would react to our customers, that's a story. How we seek feedback, that's a story. How our service will be too friendly is a story. Some people might be put off, कि यार कुछ ज़्यादा ही घुस रहे हैं. But we chose to go that way because that's our story. So in a way, marketing is just story well told. And we try to tell our stories through as many ways as possible. And again, history will be a judge. We've tried our best.
Rohit, as of now, किसी भी कैफ़े या रेस्टोरेंट को अगर आपने आपको लोगों के सामने लेके आना है, कौन सा चैनल आपको लगता है सबसे इफेक्टिव है?
Oh wow, interesting. I have a nice perspective on this. I'll tell you. When we did Melt House GK2, for the first month we were at a certain sales level. We decided to do a very strong PR campaign, right? Okay. And that did help. We were published in a lot of magazines. We sort of put the word out. We sent a deck to a lot of people we know. And we tried to build some native traction around that. But you'd be surprised to know what really was a game changer was a lot of influencer campaigns. Now, I say this with a pinch of salt. Why? And all love to influencers. They're the greatest people ever. Some of them have really helped us out on a journey. But again, my advice is for entrepreneurs who are starting out, right? It's a bit of a mixed bag at this point in time in 2024, right? There was a point in time where if you would just call in the strongest influencers into your place, they would do the most, they would do, for example, Reels for you, because Reels is a concept which Instagram is natively pushing, or this is what the internet tells me at this point. So if a lot of powerful influencers with a lot of influence, if they'll do a lot of Reels for you, your brand is very likely to blow up, or at least it's likely to catch a lot of attention in the beginning. That is still true, but the cost of having influencers in to promote you is prohibitively high at this point. Again, it's just how market works, right? Because they know the value they bring to the table, and therefore they will ask you for a certain price. It's only a matter if you can afford it. For example, now one metric, another piece of advice. Back in the day, people would care a lot about क्या influencer लाना है. We should see how many followers they have. In my experience, it doesn't work that way. And I could be wrong, not an expert on this, but what I've observed is now the metric that one should care about is how much native shares they're able to generate for you, right? So this is one of the most powerful metrics you can track. When you're looking out and scouting for influencers or people who you should collaborate with to sort of spread the word out for your brand, look for people, even if they have a smaller number of followings, but look how their past 20, 30 pieces of content have behaved, especially in terms of how much interaction they've got on those. If there is an influencer jiska 10,000 follower hai, but interaction is crazy. By that I mean comments बहुत ज़्यादा आ रहा है,
engagement ज़्यादा है,
share बहुत ज़्यादा, engagement, precisely, beautiful word. So interaction या engagement बहुत high है, even if follower count बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है, that is likelier to drive more results for you than, let's say, an influencer which has, let's say, a very high number of followers but very low interaction. So always look for high engagement, high interaction when it comes to influencer marketing. Again, one avenue which of late I feel is very, very powerful is you should always push your audiences to do UGC for you, user generated content, right? So if you have customers coming in, how do you spread native word of mouth, incentivize them to do UGC for you? It worked beautifully for us. Anytime somebody came in, we made sure they had a great time. We asked them to do a story for us or a post for us. A lot of people did that. Now, even if they have a small influence, for example, आप restaurant में आए, आपने story किया, had a great time at Melt House, and you post a picture of your mac and cheese or a grilled cheese. Now, you might have a small influencer base, but जो 200 लोग आपको follow करते हैं, mostly they'll be friends and family and your colleagues, उनके लिए आप एक बहुत ट्रस्टवर्दी सोर्स हो. So low follower base but very high trust, as opposed to again a traditional influencer, very high follower count but everybody knows यार brand collab बहुत करता है, तो trust मुकाबले में थोड़ा कम है. So when you do a lot of UGC, if imagine you're serving out on an average 2000 bills in a month, 2000 bills का मतलब into 3, 4, 8-10 हज़ार लोग रेस्टोरेंट में आ रहे हैं, और मान लो हर कोई आपके लिए यूजीसी करने लग गया या 50% भी यूजीसी करते हैं, 4000 people reaching out to their network and putting a word out for you is probably the most effective word of mouth marketing you can get. And it's insane.
Because people will trust them.
100%.
Don't have any incentive.
100%.
You know, not
Correct.
paying them.
And most likely it'll be most obvious to their followers that I'm sure they had a great time, which is why they're doing it. So high trust. UGC is another very powerful avenue, and currently we're talking about the cheapest options, right? So great influencer collabs. You should be able to have something for the influencer for them to come in, right? Again, this can be a paid or a barter relationship. UGC is again a free avenue. Incentivize your customers to vote for you. Offer them a free milkshake. Offer them a free dessert. Have your customers help you out to discover more customers. Great way, right? Make sure you harvest data. We're talking about customer relationship management tools a minute ago, right? So make sure you harvest their contact details. You ask them, you reach out to them, make sure you ask them to review you in places, because everything adds up, right? Small little touch points, eventually they'll build momentum. You ask them to leave a review for you. You ask them to help you out with spreading the word. Correct. You reach out to them in 3 months if they haven't visited you. Drop them a little hi. Hey, it was great hosting you 3 months ago. Hope you're doing well. Would love to see you again. Small little touch points, right? They help. Now, talking about other more obvious options, you could work with aggregators, right? You could work with Google or Meta, or you could work with Zomato and Swiggy.
You can run ads, right?
Correct. You can run, you could run, you can run paid marketing activities with them, right? Organic marketing is obviously your creativity, but you could run paid campaigns with them. Aggregators obviously will have more clearly defined audiences. For example, if you were to do ads with Zomato and Swiggy, they have a large data bank of audiences who are anyways into food.
Yes.
So likelier to convert more. Instagram and Meta, again, depending on how qualified you are, you could work with an agency or you could work with a marketer to help you out. And the cost of customer acquisition on Meta would be lower than, for example, Zomato and Swiggy, but they reach out to a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
If you're able to segment your audience well, cost will be equal, but at least you'll see a lot of traction. Similarly, you could run paid campaigns on Google, any of these aggregators. Now, more traditional methods would be running print ads in magazines and newspapers and the like.
But do you feel that works? Like आज के time पे वो काम करता है?
Depends on the format.
Have you tried?
Right? Oh, yeah, I did try in COVID. I did try in COVID. I didn't go ahead with that campaign, but I was considering doing a radio campaign.
Okay.
Here it really depends, right? Because I have a beautiful perspective
But I
on
feel
this.
it's really hard to track.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
because
But
on
they have
Instagram you
metrics.
can see how much engagement you're getting.
Look, I've worked in television. So in television, my business was to sell impressions. Correct. So in television, the metrics would be a CPM, which is cost per mil. And this is how we see. So obviously, when people run television advertisements, for example, they have metrics. It will be harder for you and me because maybe we don't have that right sort of skill set to be able to tally.
Yeah.
But otherwise, television advertising or radio advertising or magazine advertising are a science. They can tell you those numbers, provided you're able to make sense out of them, right? And it's an acquired skill, yeah, correct. I mean, so most marketers, there is a job description called media buyers. उनका काम ही होता था जब मैं टीवी में था कि यार they have to see कि मैं इतने में इतने ऐड खरीद रहा हूँ, मेरे को इतना रीच मिलेगा.
बिल्कुल.
उसी को अब सोशल मीडिया पे कर दिया है, बट सोशल मीडिया कंपनीज जो मेट्रिक्स देते हैं वो ईजी है, वो कोई भी समझ पाता है. टेलीविजन एंड ट्रेडिशनल मीडिया के जो मेट्रिक्स हैं, ऑफ कोर्स इट्स अ स्किल यू हैव टू लर्न, बट दे वर्क. व्हाई नॉट? आई मीन द मोस्ट कॉमन थिंग इज, आपने बोला मेरे दिमाग में ऐड चल रहा है जयवीर नानन चाप, कुछ रेडियो पे हमेशा आता है जयवीर नानन चाप. मेरे को उसकी लोकेशन ही पता है, पीरागढ़ी, रोहिणी, मेंटो के M3, 4 लोकेशन याद हो गया है. बिकॉज एवरी टाइम आई एम ड्राइविंग इन द कार, इट कीप्स प्लेइंग ऑन द रेडियो, जयवीर नानन चाप, याद हो गया. It works. It's traditional, but it works. It depends on your brand. Now, again, it's expensive.
Yes.
Radio is expensive. I follow this guy on the internet, great marketer, Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yes.
He says you have to figure out where the attention is and where the attention is cheapest at any point in time.
Yeah.
Because we are a small business, right? We're not a big company.
True.
For small business, ये देखना पड़ेगा कहाँ पे maximum reach मिलता है for the cheapest price. And to answer your question simply, maybe वो जो ticker है वो अभी डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म्स की तरफ ज़्यादा स्क्यू करता है, बिकॉज अटेंशन इज ईजियर टू गेट देयर, इट्स चीपर टू गेट देयर, and potentially it's the most accessible for small businesses right now. टेलीविजन में करने के लिए आपको समझना ही इतना मुश्किल है
Yeah.
किससे अप्रोच करें, एंड ऑफ कोर्स वेरी एक्सपेंसिव मीडियम्स, बट दे वर्क. फॉर एग्जांपल इन GK2 some new restaurants opened up and market के entry पे they've done a billboard. You can't miss it. It's a top of the mind recall. Market में आप घुस रहे हो, घुसते ही इतना बड़ा billboard दिखता है 20 by 20 फुट का. It catches your attention like crazy, but it is expensive. The rentals for that for a month anywhere from 1.5 to 2 to 3 to 4 lakhs. You can't pin down.
Okay.
Now ring road पे आप करोगे 10-20-30 लाख भी जाता
Yeah.
है. So they work, depends on your pocket.
क्या आप कोई भी कोलैबोरेशन या मार्केटिंग कैंपेन के बारे में बता सकते हो जो आपके लिए बहुत सक्सेसफुल रहा या जिसने लाइक यू गॉट अमेजिंग रिजल्ट्स आउट ऑफ इट?
Yeah, honestly, campaign right now to pinpoint, I'll have to really think about this, and I'm not well prepared for this. But I'll tell you, I'm going to tell you some things which I feel are generally, I'm talking about mostly organic content, right?
Yeah.
Which has really helped us and which has performed better than other ones. For example, now this might be helpful for a budding entrepreneur. For example, if you're doing a restaurant or a bakery business, the most default choice when it comes to organic content is कि यार खाने का ना सुंदर सा फोटो डाल देते हैं. ये देखो मैंने croissant बनाया, ये देखो मैंने पेस्ट्री बनाया. In my experience, ma'am, that is the least likely to do well. Because understand, on Instagram, search croissant, there are, I can't count how many images are there.
Yeah.
A million maybe at any point in time. Everybody's trying to put out a best look. And again, most people who are really into their marketing know कि ये नहीं चलेगा. But most people who are starting out might not know this, right? Do not go for the most obvious impulsive choice. Do not put out a pretty looking picture. आपको लग रहा है वाह मेरा croissant दुनिया का सबसे सुंदर. People don't care as much.
Yeah.
Because उनका feed में so I'll tell you another great rule of thumb. Don't think कि मुझे क्या बोलना है. Think के सामने वाले को क्या सुनना है. That should be a great metric, right? So if you're my target audiences, first know and build a great target audience profile. कि यार मैं एक restaurant हूँ, मुझे दिखता है कि I get a lot of millennial crowd, तो उसकी प्रोफाइल क्या है, उसके इंटरेस्ट क्या है, उसको क्या पसंद है, वो कोल्ड प्ले कॉन्सर्ट सुनना चाहता है, दिलजीत कॉन्सर्ट में जाना चाहता है. फिगर आउट हु दिस गाय इज, एवरेज इनकम कितना है, कार कौन सा पसंद है. इफ इट्स यू कुड कंप्लीटली बिल्ड अ प्रोफाइल, यू कुड बिल्ड इट फॉर एनीवन. आपके ऑडियंस में जो आपको लगता है मोस्ट पावरफुल है, यू कैन इवन हैव 2-3 कस्टमर प्रोफाइल. वंस यू हैव अ कस्टमर प्रोफाइल, यू थिंक कि मेरी मैसेजिंग क्या हो कि उसको इंटरेस्ट आए. अब दिस इज सेल्फ इंडल्जेंट के देखो मेरा पास्ता सबसे यमी, बट उसका फीड में 1 लाख पास्ता के फीड होंगे इफ़ शी इज़ अ फूडी, राइट. अगर वो क्रोज़ों खाती है बहुत ज़्यादा तो 1 लाख क्रोज़ों होएगा या 1 लाख पेस्ट्री होएगा. सो शी विल टून यू आउट. सो यू हैव टू फिगर आउट हाउ कैन यू टेल अ स्टोरी कि उसको थोड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग आए. वट आई रियलाइज दिस is people generally like, for example, for our reel content, people generally like content of faces and human interactions far more than products. This is a recent learning. Again, algorithm changes every month, you don't know. अभी जो चल रहा है, for example, if I do fun content with my team, right, we give people an insight into what working at Melt House is like. हमारा डे प्रेप कैसे होता है. मान लो अगर हम अब हैलोवीन आ रहा है, we did a very funny reel with all our staff participating in it. The staff also had a good time. It's a great team building exercise. We also had a great time shooting it. It worked really well. So that seemed to be the traction, right? When people see faces, they relate to them more. When people see people telling their story, their truth, they relate to them more. As opposed to you telling them how yummy my product is, you're trying to sell me, I'm done. Too many people selling to me right now. As a customer myself, मेरे को इतना ad content दिखता है, मैं थक गया यार. मेरे को कुछ either educate me or entertain me or just generally engage me. या तो मुझसे कुछ ऐसा पूछो जिसमें मेरे को कॉन्वर्सेशन में पार्टिसिपेट करने में इंटरेस्ट आए, या मेरे को हंसा दो, टाइम पास करवा दो, या मेरे को कुछ ऐसा बताओ, एजुकेट मी इन अ वे दैट चेंजेस माई लाइफ. I think it's a good rule of thumb for anybody planning their marketing content. I feel this is a good rule of thumb.
Okay, I don't think restaurant owners think that way.
चाहिए सोचना यार, मतलब great brands do.
Yes.
A lot of brands, heck, I don't know if we are able to do this, पर करना तो ये चाहते हैं. Eventually करेंगे भी, and we've had some learning. Some of our pieces have done really, really well for us, and over time our audience base is continuously growing. We have a team in-house now. Again, we bringing in our set of experience. So all of this works really well. But our rule of thumb is we are not trying to sell our content to people. We are telling our story to people.
Okay.
If they resonate and relate to the story, eventually आ जाएंगे.
Yeah.
और ये एक, sorry, one more thing I have to add here. Do not see your social media as कि ये मेरा प्लेटफॉर्म है जिससे मैं चीज़ें बेच सकता हूँ. रेस्टोरेंट है तो मैं बार बार अपना खाना डालूंगा, ये बोलूँगा बेस्ट रिव्यूड पास्ता इन इंडिया. तो ये आप बेच रहे हो यार, यू आर ट्राइंग टू, अगेन हाउ मच कैन यू सेल टू समवन, राइट? बेटर है कि थ्रू योर ऑर्गेनिक कंटेंट expose somebody to a fun story, expose somebody to your values, let the people relate to your values. क्योंकि एल्गोरिदम ऐसा है, अगर कंटेंट अच्छा है ऑडियंसेस आ जाएंगी, रीच आ जाएगा, नहीं आ रहा तो आप बूस्ट करके या उसको पेड एक्टिवेशन में डाल के रीच ला सकते हो. बट अगर लोग आपकी स्टोरी से रिलेट कर गए ना, तो आप उनके टॉप ऑफ माइंड में आ गए. नाउ ऐसा नहीं है कि वो मेल्ट हाउस इसलिए आया कि अरे उनका माई पास्ता बेस्ट फोटो देखा. वो इसलिए आया क्योंकि जब व्हेन अ कस्टमर इज मेकिंग अ डिसीजन कि आई वांट टू गो आउट टुडे बट वेयर शुड आई गो, you should be on top of their mind. Oh, Melt House, yeah, they seem like a fun brand. I seen their content, I've engaged with their content. Maybe let's check it out. Even though he has seen all my staff content only, staff having fun, but at least I was on top of their mind, right? And this is what we're trying to do with our marketing, at least.
Okay.
Long answer, but here goes.
आज के टाइम पे आप कैफ़े या F&B इंडस्ट्री को इंडिया में कैसा इवॉल्व होते हुए देख रहे हो? आपके हिसाब से आगे क्या होगा?
It's a great time. If you ask me from my perspective, India is, I mean, for all intent and purpose, there are several versions of India right now, but our economy is booming like crazy. I've been lucky enough to be able to be a tiny fraction of this, a very minuscule fraction, but I see the story playing out like crazy. We're eventually heading towards being a middle income economy now, and customer brands and especially customer brands which have a story to tell are going to blow up like crazy. And with every passing day, pick up a newspaper yaar, pick up Economic Times, itna aata hai ki yaar this brand blew up, this brand blew up. It's true. I don't remember when I was a kid kitna hi option tha bahar jane ke liye. Wohi when I was in school 12th tak to I had 10 15 20 options max. Abhi I'm tired every time I go to a new restaurant, right? Because the options are so good, and all of them are good, by the way. So many good concepts, and a lot of them seem to work really really well. हाँ, वो भी है that eventually when a lot of people open, eventually वो होता है, the wheat and the chaff has to separate, right? So some of them will die out, but some of them will really shine, and for those that shine will do really really well. So I think it's a great time. It's a great time to build customer facing brands. It's a great time to tell stories, and why not yaar? I see this growing by leaps and bounds, and I have 100% full faith in this. And I do believe India has a great customer story to be told, even though a lot of it is being told as we speak. But abhi to barely we're scratching the surface. It's going to explode like crazy. This is what I believe in, honestly.
So if I visit Melt House, what should I order?
I can't answer that question. Yeah, look. Okay, look at it this way, yaar. For example, you have 5 kids, right?
Okay.
How will you tell which one's your favorite? You can't, right? I love everything about Melt House.
What do you eat? What would you eat?
I eat everything. But okay, I'll tell you, God, you're putting me in a very difficult position because I genuinely love everything we do at Melt House. Very honestly, I'm impartial. They're all my babies, right? So, but again, look, we started off as a sandwich brand. Yeah, first of all, it's deep inside we are a sandwich place, and again, a rule of thumb I tell anyone is go with anything that goes with Melt, right? So if you go for anything with a lot of cheese, you'll do really well. If you go with anything with chocolate, you'll do really, really well.
Okay.
So good rule of thumb, go to Melt House, eat a grilled cheese. Always will be good. If you eat a pasta, do not try to go for the most Italian sounding pasta. Go for the most American sounding pasta. By that I mean, if you were to choose an aglio olio or you were to choose a mac and cheese, choose the mac and cheese.
Okay.
If you were to choose a vodka arrabbiata, which is by the way very good at Melt House, my favorite. But if you were to choose a vodka arrabbiata or you were to choose a baked conchiglione, choose the baked conchiglione. It's going to be life-changing good.
And you said there are many grilled cheese sandwiches. Yeah. Which one?
The best-selling grilled cheese
the best-selling.
I am mostly a vegetarian, but my wife eats a lot of non-veg. But the best grilled cheese which we've sold amazing number of portions of is the piri piri chicken cheesesteak grilled cheese.
Okay.
It's essentially a cheesesteak grilled cheese, but cheesesteak is beef, and we want to do chicken. So it's a chicken cheesesteak, and it's in with peri peri, and there's about 4 different kinds of cheese in there. It's in sardo, and it's a great sandwich. You can't go wrong with it. But again, I was telling you, so choose baked pastas, choose mac and cheese, choose grilled cheese, definitely choose the skillet cookie. Oh my God, the skillet cookie and the hot chocolate.
I have tasted that. It's really good.
You're a baker. You'll say it's too sweet. Everybody keeps telling me it's too sweet.
I know. It was really nice.
Yeah, because if you have to
and
eat
with that
sweet,
scoop of ice cream.
Oh, it's very good.
It's really good.
It's basic, right? So it's as humble as a. There's a word for it I discovered later. It's called when you serve pie. When you say pie a la mode is when you serve pie with ice cream. So quintessential flavors, right? This is what Melt House is all about. It's about Italian American cuisine, right? So if you choose the basics and you do it really well, why not? And we are a little bit about indulgence also, right? So if you're doing a dessert, तो सॉरी यार, हमारा ब्रांड है पर हम लोग मीठा डालना है तो फिर इट्स रियली स्वीट
Yeah.
है तो है, सॉरी बट सो चीज़ है, सो यू कांट से आई एट अ ग्रिल्ड चीज मेल्ट हाउस टू चीजी, you got too much butter. It's a grilled cheese. What do we do?
Yeah.
Hey, cheese. 120 grams of cheese in there, and choose the skillet cookie. There are 4 different kinds of chocolate in there, so it's gonna be sweet. It's gonna be indulgent. But what the hell? That's what we are. Sorry.
Okay. What are your future plans with Melt House?
Yeah. Again, we are taking this journey very deliberately and slowly and carefully. Because again, second-hand experiences, I haven't suffered it, but people end up entering the wrong kind of partnership, or they become too greedy or too aggressive, and then they just blow up on their face. So again, might work for some people, but we are trying to be very deliberate about this. Our plan right now is to gradually expand out of NCR first, and then looking at a couple of more interesting cities. But again, we're possibly looking at this from only a 1 to 2 outlets per city perspective. We are scouting for a location within Delhi right now as we speak. We're looking for another location in Gurugram, maybe in Noida. Eventually, we're looking at Jaipur, Chandigarh, Bombay, Bangalore, Hyderabad. इतना अभी सोचा है, आगे let's see where this takes us. But these are cities on our radar, and we desperately want to be at these places. We believe in the brand, we believe in the excellent people in these cities, and we hope they'll appreciate the product.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I'm sure they will. So we have recently brought this new concept. I saw it in one of the podcasts and really enjoyed it. तो हम क्या करते हैं, जैसे आज आप हमारे गेस्ट हो तो हम आपसे बोलेंगे कि कोई भी क्वेश्चन जब हमारे अपकमिंग गेस्ट से पूछना चाहो, विदाउट नोइंग हु शी और ही विल बी फ्रॉम विच ब्रांड whatever, but they'll definitely be from the F&B industry. Okay. So our last guest was Jiten from Jagmag Thela. He's the founder of Jagmag Thela. And his question for you is, if you were not in the F&B industry and doing what you are doing right now, what else would you have done with your life? Are you happy or regret this decision of Melt House?
I love this decision at Melt House. I think it's the best decision ever, and I don't look back at past ever with regret. I think Jo le liya, that's the only course of action your life could have taken. Greatest decision ever. Melt House has given me some of the most fulfilling moments of my life, including moments which I never thought in retrospect कि वो इतना impactful होगा. But sometimes I've had interactions with my customers, and the feedback they've given me, I will never forget that time. So great decision, love all in decision. Melt House is the greatest thing ever that ever. Melt House is one of the greatest things that ever happened to my life. So lucky to be a part of this. So lucky to have a team like this, to have partners like this, and God's been very, very kind. So I'm very grateful. But to answer the second part of your question, you said, what would I have been doing if I were not doing this?
Yeah.
I would have left everything and become a writer.
Writer?
Yeah, 100%. I read like a nerd, yaar. I just love reading way too much. And then back when in Bombay, as I discussed my experience in television, but I was a producer, but I was trying to get into writing for films. And that's what I always wanted to do. To be more specific, I would have loved to become a scriptwriter or a screenwriter. That's what I would have loved to do. But life took a very different direction. Not that I'm complaining.
Because you like stories, right?
Oh, 100%. I knew somehow or the other, I would end up telling stories.
Okay.
और ऐसा भी नहीं है. Life is I have if I get a decent life expectancy, I believe I have a lot of years left. Yeah, so why not? Yeah, we'll keep telling stories in one format or the other.
Okay.
Let's see where this goes.
Now, one question from you for our next guest.
So one question I'm supposed to ask your next guest without knowing who that person is. Great. I'm assuming this person will be from F&B hospitality industry. So let me ask, what is the one tip or insight you could give us about building a great team culture? It's been something I've been really loving to understand and research more of. So I'd love to know their perspective on this. How do you build a strong, lasting team culture that can drive your brand forward?
Great. So with this, we are done. Thank you so much, Rohit, for coming today.
Thank you.
I think this was nothing short of a masterclass.
Wow.
And I really enjoyed. I have learned so much, and I think I'll be watching this episode more than once.
Thank you so much. Very humble to be here. Thank you.
And I wish you all the best for Melt House.
Thank you so much.
And I hope to see you at many other places.
And I'm looking forward to hosting you in a mum for dinner.
Yeah.
So please make a plan. Thank you for having me, and much appreciate this. Thank you.